Hi Aries, welcome to your reading for December. Thanks for tuning in. Please join me while I'm shuffling. Tune in with your higher self and your guides. Make a connection with them and ask them to connect with me, with my higher self and my guides, so that we can create a feedback loop. That way the messages that come through today will be tailored for you. We're going to have a look at the general event energies available at this time. One more. Strength at the bottom of the deck. Six of Pentacles. Interesting. There's some interesting symmetry in this reading. You have 10 of Wands and 10 of Swords, and you have 8 of Wands and 8 of Swords. There's also the King and Queen of Cups here, the Queen being in reverse. She's here in the foundation. What else is here? Death is the crossing card of your reading. So it's your challenge at this time, is to transform and transmute. So with there being these two tens in your reading in reverse, along with death, I would have to say there's some pretty major endings happening at this time. Some transformation, some cycles culminating, and transitions that you're making at this time. But I feel that with that, obviously changes and transitions and endings of cycles can come with some difficulty. But I actually feel like there's like in you there's a kind of like openness and a willingness to actually participate in that in a really unresistant way, like in a cooperative way, and that will very much help to kind of move things through without too much of tension. That's what I feel like. I feel like you're really ready for something to change, and that willingness and that readiness will actually be able to contribute into the circumstance in a way that will move things forward and keep things progressing without too much of strife and challenge. So let's see what else is here. So for major arcana cards, you have the Moon upright, you have the Fool upright, and you have Death as the crossing card of the reading. So those are interesting energies to contribute to this reading. As I've mentioned, Death as the crossing card is suggesting that there are some major transformations, endings happening around this time. The Moon is in the position of hopes and fears along with this 8 of Wands. So what this is telling me is that you may be having some clarity around some certain type of unconscious patterns or unconscious behaviors that you are becoming aware of now very suddenly. Like you may have an epiphany around something, and that is actually giving you a lot of clarity about how you actually have been responsible for certain things that you may not have actually been willing to take responsibility for in the past. And I feel that's a very healing energy. I feel like it's helping you become more empowered and activated and awakened to your own sense of purposefulness, and also how you're actually able to feel more empowered in the situation, because you're actually claiming ownership and responsibility for how you've contributed to certain events or situations that you've experienced. And in doing so, you're able to then shift out of unconscious patterns and behaviors and become aware of those unconscious motivations in order to then minimize that kind of difficult energy in the future. So what else is here? As I said, there's the King and Queen of Cups in your reading. The Queen of Cups is in reverse. And so the card in this position of the reading describes what's in the unconscious mind, or that which is unknown. So that's interesting, that because this Moon card is also the kind of the unconscious mind, right? So I feel like these are connected in this reading in the sense that that which I just described earlier about the unconscious mind and patterns becoming revealed, or you becoming aware of things, is actually what's helping this perhaps emotionally immature or emotionally underdeveloped in a certain area become brought to your awareness for you to actually work on shifting and changing it. And that's what actually a lot of all this culmination and transformation energy could be. It could simply be about you becoming aware of some kind of deep-seated unconscious motivation or pattern or behavior that has been maybe creating conflict in your life, or creating some kind of, you know, there may have been like some kind of, and that's what this king with the 5 of swords is saying here too, that there may have been in you a sort of desire to generate conflict at times, or you may have been the type of person that has a tendency towards argumentativeness, or that kind of energy where you maybe you're like kind of, you like sparring, or you like arguing or debating on certain topics. But you may have sort of become aware of that recently to in a way that helps you see that those types of, that kind of energy or that kind of interaction is actually not really progressing. It's not progressing you forward, and it's not progressing your relationships forward. And maybe your awareness of that is what's helping you to kind of feel liberated from a kind of old way. And in doing so, it's actually bringing you to a little bit more confidence here with this 9 of Pentacles in the outcome of the reading, 4 of Cups. So it's something here about realizing like how you may have been kind of tying energy up in a way that may have served a certain purpose for a while, but you may realize that you're growing out of that and don't feel the need to kind of pursue that type of interaction with people. And so that's freeing up some of your energy to see, okay, how can I, it's almost like you have the moment here where you can sort of reinvent yourself, or just like kind of fine-tuning your personality or your interactions with people in a way that it's actually much more whole and loving and caring and compassionate and kind, rather than it being about kind of trying to control energy or kind of even manipulate people in certain ways. But it's like now there's like this opening up, there's some kind of like space opening up for you to see, oh, I can if I'm not tying energy up in that kind of a way, then like that frees me up to do some other stuff which might be a lot more interesting. Okay, bottom of the deck, we have Strength, Page of Swords reversed, 4 of Wands reversed, and 10 of Cups reversed. Okay. So, for some of you, if this King and Queen of Cups is you and your partner, it could suggest to you that there is like maybe there is a breakup happening at this time. And some of that reinvention energy could be what's going on here. If you've kind of, if part of like what the breakup is showing you is how you may have been a certain way in your relationships before, maybe this underdeveloped emotional energy, then this is a real awakening to kind of like something really deep that's been going on in you for a long time. And you may be realizing like that shift that's occurring in you, while it may have come through some kind of painful event here, it's bringing you to a place of greater understanding of yourself. It's greater compassion, it's healing energy. It's like whenever we let go of an old pattern that we've become aware of, it's painful because first of all there's that moment of realizing that you've been behaving a certain way that's not necessarily as evolved as you might have liked to think that you were. And sometimes there can be some guilt or shame that comes along with that as well, and that also needs to be kind of handled and processed in a certain way. So there's pain around that, but ultimately we know that once those things are revealed, there is the space opening up for us to actually rise up in more love, in more light, in a much more refined version of ourselves, where we aren't kind of like wasting energy on like those kind of places where there's like resistance in us that prevents us from being more loving, you know. So there definitely feels like there's some some shifts occurring here that you may not feel like necessarily completely grounded in yourself at this time. If there's some occurrences here where there's like some, you know, you may know that there's a change occurring and that there's a shift occurring. There may be some, like, you know, moving out of home or changing some kind of dynamics with people, but you may not have landed quite yet in something that is where you're actually going to be ended up. So there's a little bit of a need here for some patience and for some just being gentle with yourself is what I'm feeling. Let's see what else is here. Yeah, you have the Fool here in the environment quadrant of the reading, upright, with the Knight of Swords in reverse. So that's sort of telling me that, yes, I mean, the Fool again is another card that indicates that there's a cycle complete and there's something new beginning. But with the Knight of Swords in reverse here, with the Fool, I feel like, yes, there's that feeling of like something new beginning and the cycle being over, but it's actually not totally being embodied yet. Like, or you may not actually be physically taking action. You might still be in the process of like kind of sorting through some debris and doing lots of communication to kind of sort things out. But there may not be like a total closure and moving on like right at this particular time. All right, I feel that's it for the general reading. Let's take the Voyager deck. We're going to have a look at your higher octave spread. The higher octave spread, I'm using the Voyager deck. This is designed to give a little bit more insight into what may be playing out in a karmic way or a spiritual way, or maybe some forces that are at play that we can't see may be revealed through this reading. And perhaps sometimes also your guides will offer some practical advice about how to best work with the energies that are playing out for you to make the most out of your situation. So please tune in again with me while I shuffle and send your energy into the deck. Five of Cups is at the bottom of the deck. Seven of Cups. Eight of Cups. Wow. Eight of Crystals reversed. So there's more eights. There's two eights in the previous reading. King of Pentacles in reverse. Ace of Crystals reversed. Six of Worlds. Fortune reversed. Sage of Cups reversed. Sage of Worlds reversed. Four of Worlds reversed. Three of Cups. Five of Crystals. Eight of Wands. Ace of Worlds. So again, there's three eights in this reading. So there's generally the eights can kind of indicate that there is something karmic happening here. Right, so you have eight of Crystals as the crowning card, Eight of Cups crossing, and Eight of Wands here. In the previous reading, we had also Eight of Wands and Eight of Swords. So repetition of the energies in the second reading usually indicates that it's quite a significant part of the reading. So again, I would say there is, like, what I feel from that is that there is something in you that is you're being alerted or awakened to something, some kind of your own personal behavior that you have been expressing in a certain way that has been having a consequence externally that you may not have until recently realized is actually the cause and the effect is both coming from you. So there's this awakening to a kind of level of responsibility about how you are putting energy out into the world that with your awareness now is enabling you to create shifts in your own personal time-space continuum whereby you are in the awareness that in the future you will not necessarily be repeating those same kinds of energies, so you won't necessarily have those same kinds of events show up, that you may be kind of at the tail end of processing of something right now around this type of area. I hope that made sense. What else is here? Again, there's this energy here in the outcome part of the reading where like there is this feeling of something closing out. There's some big understanding happening. There's a culmination going on, but the actual new thing beginning isn't really quite yet. There's still some clarification and tying up of things. A new beginning isn't quite yet on the horizon, although you are ready for it. There's 2 aces in the reading. There's also at the foundation here this King of Pentacles in reverse. In the previous reading, you had the Queen of Cups in reverse. So what I feel from this is that in the previous reading I was talking about maybe you may have been behaving a little bit emotionally immature in a certain area, and with the Moon card there as well, it's like you becoming aware of certain unconscious behavioral patterns that now you realize how those things have been working and what the effects of that has been. And now with this King of Pentacles in reverse in this position, this could be leaving you feeling a little bit inundated with information, and may also be sort of slightly affecting your ability to feel grounded and feel like self-esteem, secure in yourself. But that's just like that was what I was describing earlier, when like when you realize you've been doing something a certain way and the effect that it's having, at some point you might feel a little bit ashamed or a little bit guilty or a little bit hard on yourself because you've been doing that. But it's important to feel those things, but it's also important to work through it and give yourself encouragement and know that you have the awareness right now to actually even recognize those things. So you need to give yourself encouragement and support and not be hard on yourself right now. Not be hard on yourself, but actually give yourself some props, some encouragement to keep going, to keep continuing on with this process and not get stuck in that stage of feeling bad about yourself or feeling shame or guilt, because that will kind of not help progress you forward in actually kind of really grasping all of the information that's here for you. Yeah, that's the 8 of Cups is the crossing card as well. It's like the 8 of Cups in this deck is called stagnancy. So I feel like if that's where you're coming from, and if you allow those feelings of shame and guilt to be what you get like stuck in, if you just kind of end this understanding there, you're going to miss out on the real rewards that are coming for you, and you're going to be stagnant in that energy. So it's really important to kind of fight back against that desire to want to just be feeling mopey or guilty or sad or hard on yourself. Like you have to work through that, push through that, and find the place where you have self-love enough to give yourself the encouragement for being brave enough to even realize these things and face them. It's a really important part of the step of this work that you're doing here. And then synthesizing all of that so that you can actually move beyond and through all of this into the new level of you operating from a different place where you have overcome some really old buried stuff. 5 of Cups, 9 of Crystals. So now we have this more sort of repeating energy. Here we have the Man of Wands in reverse and the Magician in reverse. Okay. Feel like this is more or less a repetition of what I've just said. Like you may have realized something that has been painful to acknowledge and accept and witness about you, about your own, emotional behavior or your unconscious motivations that have kind of been causing you to act and speak a certain way, perhaps. And these other 3-4 cards here are saying basically what I've just said. It's really important to continue pursuing the entirety of the healing process and not just getting stuck at that place where you do feel those feelings of shame or guilt or remorse, but actually continue to pursue like the healing of it in its entirety by actually working through that stuff and getting to the place where you can really see the magic that's at play and find the willpower to continue on to completely and wholly and totally understand all of what's here for you, so that you can kind of really pad out the information and get it to the place that it's intended to go. Hope that's making sense. I feel like it's important to say, because the last card that just flipped out there, I wanted to become part of this reading, so I pulled it, is the Chariot, and it's here in reverse with the Magician. So I feel like you do need a little bit more encouragement here. I feel like you may feel a little bit disheartened by what you're experiencing at the moment, and I just want to make sure that you get it, that it's really it's really wonderful that you actually have come to the place where you can see all this stuff. Even if it's painful, you may feel that disappointment, you may feel that those feelings like I've been describing of shame or guilt or disappointment in yourself even. But it's really important that that's to understand that's part of like this whole journey that you're going through, is that you have to work through that stuff as well to get to the place where you can understand like the magic that's at play, and how brave you are, and how strong you are, and how determined you are, and to keep working with those energies to push through, so that you don't stop here where run the risk of sort of sinking into delusion and feeling so sad about what you used to do, that you've become aware of, that you can end up becoming stagnant in that place of remorse and even self-pity. So be mindful of that and continue to work with your will and your determination to keep moving this forward, to bring it to a place of completion. Okay, checking over here, but I feel like that's it for your reading, Aries. It's interesting here. You had the Six of Pentacles in the previous reading at the heart of the spread, and in the second higher octave reading, it's here in the outcome, Six of Worlds. So I feel like there is something here for you guys about the reciprocity. It's about reciprocity. I feel maybe that's what some of this has been about for a lot of you, is like being able to give and receive equally, and not letting it be only one way, because that's also kind of a lesson around self-worth and deserving and equality and harmony. So if that's resonating, take a look at that. But and then finally, I'll say here with we have the Wheel of Fortune here with the Ace of Pentacles in this position of how you see yourself. So I think it's really important that to mention that, and to close this reading out saying that this is a pretty major shift that's going on here. And with the Ace of Pentacles together here with this Wheel of Fortune card, it does very much indicate that this is a really bright, hopeful new beginning for you, where there is the potential to create entirely new forms of operating in the physical realm with people and in life in general. And it's a really bright turning point, actually. Whatever it is that you've understood and that you're overcoming is something really big that's been impacting your life for a long time, and maybe in a really difficult way. Maybe the things that you're realizing now have been are you're able to connect the dots between multiple different events in your life gone by, and understanding just how much you have been driving your relationships and situations with people in a way that was unconscious until maybe pretty recently. So this is really big work. I think this is really profound and very it's like you're exhuming something really old out of the deepest depths of your unconscious. So yeah, have that moment of like really experiencing all those emotions, because they've been probably in you for quite a long time, and you may not have had the chance to actually give them a voice. But just keep that in mind. Like, it's important to keep it moving, keep it pushing. Don't let yourself get stuck too long in any of the emotions that you're feeling. Like, process them, but don't overly intellectualize them. Don't overly talk about it too much with people. Just like, write it out or work it out in your own forms, in your own art creative ways, and however you work with that kind of energy, with your own magic. But continue to keep the energy pushing forward, and don't get stuck in any one point along the process. All right, Aries, that's your reading for this time. It's an honor and a pleasure to read for you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next reading.